Good morning to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here, about 10 minutes to 5 Eastern Time on August 18th, 2017. I want to talk about Tropical Storm Harvey, the latest advisory coming out from the National Hurricane Center this morning. Winds are still 40 miles per hour, so that's good news. Pressure's dropping a little bit to 1,004 millibars and still moving west at a fairly decent pace at 18 miles per hour. Now, the headline here, of course, Harvey drenching the Windward Islands. Definitely some heavy rainfall moving through the area. If we look at the non-colorized infrared, the black and white infrared, and in this particular loop, the brighter the whites is typically the higher the cloud tops. And I like looking at this one because it gives me a general idea of the shape of things before I try to go in and look at the finer details. And first of all, you can notice this huge upper level low now over Cuba. Very interesting feature. And this little complex right here off of the coast of North Carolina, I can actually see the lightning from that from my office right there out over the horizon. Pretty neat. So back to Harvey, though. That's what we're talking about. Enough organization with it that it's still a tropical storm, but it's still somewhat nebulous looking, and we're going to take a closer look at that in just a moment. Of course, this is Invest Area 92L, and we're going to talk about this more later in the day. Really no threats from it that I can see. None of the modeling really developing as it heads in this direction, and so I have my doubts that it'll develop. That doesn't mean that it won't, and I'm not saying that it won't. I just doubt that it will. I think the probabilities are actually against it in the longer term, especially as it's going to run into some rather adverse conditions through there. In the meantime, another system back here certainly bears watching. You can see it trying to curl up as well. It's just that time of year. But I want to focus on Harvey and the current thinking from the National Hurricane Center. So let's go back to the Hurricane Center homepage. We'll click on the map for the next several days. And this is the forecast, still not calling for it to become a hurricane. Generally west to west-northwest, and then a bend to definitely true west-northwest with time into Belize and over parts of Guatemala. That's the 5-day forecast track. And if we read the discussion that's come out, hopefully this is the latest, 5 a.m., and this is written by forecaster Avila, and I've known him for several years as well. And they have the veterans in there as of late, Dr. Pash, Dr. Bevan, and now Lixian Avila, or Avila, depending on how you say it. So let's read this together, shall we? Harvey's cloud pattern has changed very little in organization during the past several hours. The low-level center is difficult to find, even using the 1-minute images from the GO-16, but it appears to be located on the eastern edge of the convection due to the prevailing easterly shear. Estimates from both the satellite agencies support keeping it at 35 knots. Another Air Force plane will be investigating Harvey at sunrise. That'll be pretty, won't it? The moderate easterly shear affecting the cyclone is expected to increase a little during the next day or so, and this factor should not allow significant strengthening. Once the cyclone reaches the western Caribbean in 3 or 4 days, an environment of lower shear and high moisture is forecast to prevail. I'm going to highlight that right there. That's interesting. And Harvey should then gather some strength. The cyclone could be near hurricane strength by the time it is approaching Central America or the Yucatan Peninsula. The NHC forecast is very similar to the previous one and is very close to the intensity consensus. The GFS and the Euro global models are just a little more enthusiastic in keeping the cyclone from dissipating in this last run. But who knows what they might forecast the next time. That's interesting. Harvey has not changed in track or speed, and it is still moving towards the west. Fairly good clip. The cyclone is well embedded within the easterlies, south of the persistent subtropical ridge. This steering pattern will keep Harvey trapped in the Caribbean Sea while moving westward for the next few days. The track forecast is similar to the one issued by my predecessor, and it follows closely the multi-model consensus. The guidance envelope is quite tight and is bounded by the northernmost ECMWF and I'm going to show you that in a minute, and the GFS to the south. So the north envelope, the side of the envelope. So if you think about the track, what is that? So this is the envelope of the track right here. You have the euro to the north side. There's my E, and the GFS on the southern side of the cone, or the overall envelope. So if we look at the forecast, still 70 miles per hour, but you know what? It'll probably be a hurricane. I can at least go out on a limb and say that, and that's probably not stretching it too far. So this is what it looks like in the beautiful colorized infrared, and some very, very cold cloud tops right over the Barbados area. Reports that I was getting from followers of my work on Twitter, etc., not suggesting, a lot of lightning and thunderstorm activity moving through the area. Center of circulation probably in here somewhere, whatever. That's not too much of an issue in and of itself. Since it is moving fairly quickly, you've only got a few more hours, and the eastern edge of this will be moving through. After I do this update, I'm going to get some sleep, and when I wake up, this will all but be through the Windward Islands. But in the meantime, you folks here in the path over the next few hours, you can see where the heavy convection is, and the threat of rainfall, a few inches here and there, flash flooding, mudslides, etc. Do not take that lightly, please. So this is the black and white infrared with the lat long put on it. Again, the center of circulation really close to Barbados, and you can see another blow up of convection right there. So you guys in Barbados and gals, hang on. It's the end is near. The center of circulation will pass over, it looks like, and then again the eastern edge of it is quickly approaching. Fairly decent outflow with it overall, but I'm telling you, it's definitely embedded in this deep easterly flow here, really getting pushed along, but it's not being shredded to bits. It's not moving at 25 knots, or even 20 knots for that matter. So it's got a shot. Still doesn't have much banding associated with it. It's trying. There's a little bit of a band right there, maybe another one in here, and that's what the beauty of recon later today will show us, is what the organization of it is really like. So again, just to get you geographically oriented, the center of circulation real close to Barbados now. So folks from Martinique down here through Grenada, and I don't really think Trinidad and Tobago are going to have too much to worry about from this. Maybe some squalls, but that's about it. But the main impact, that heavy convective activity, pretty much through this corridor here, maybe St. Lucia as well. And within the next 12 hours, it should all be passing through. 12 to 18 at the most, I think. All right, so looking at the track guidance, this is what Mr. Avila was talking about. The euro is not showed on this, is not depicted on here, unfortunately. But overall, the guidance envelope very tight, no major outliers just yet, and this should go far enough south of Jamaica that the center of circulation, whatever is there, and that's what these lines represent, by the way, is the center, not this entire cloud mass that we see here. We're talking about each of those little forecast points is a dot, and you can see that the storm is much bigger than a dot. I probably should have pointed that out a long time ago. So as this moves on through, I say it would pass south of Jamaica, but some of those rain bands could come right over Jamaica, maybe even Haiti. You just never know. So we got to keep an eye on that over the next few days. The intensity forecast getting a little bit more interesting. A very strong, I guess, consensus here amongst a lot of the modeling for this to approach hurricane intensity, but then your GFS model here says nope. So we shall see. It's interesting, though, this is starting to ramp up in the intensity guidance, leaning in that direction a little bit more, and rightfully so, because you look at this. I want to change my color palette here to blue. The storm is located right in here, and this is upper level high pressure, so it's moving into an area of very light upper level winds. It's just moving so quickly, it's getting pushed from the east, and so it's tilted somewhat. It's not able to gather itself, but this upper low is retrograding back, and not necessarily due west, but it's moving on, and this is following along in tandem, everything together. So this has a shot, especially in the notorious development region of the Northwest Caribbean Sea, and even more so here in the Gulf of Honduras. Things can happen very quickly there. and we're going to need to watch that. We're also going to need to watch some interesting things in the Euro. Rarely will you see me post model output beyond 7 days, but I want to show you this, and I want to have the reasoning behind it understood. We're only going to look at day 7 through day 7, by the way, not like 10 days or whatever. The European Model A is generally regarded as a very well put together global model. It's had its issues this year with genesis of systems or not, etc. But overall, it's a very reliable global model. And I think most people would agree with that. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to look at this, and then we're going to talk about why I'm showing days 6 and 7 and what that will mean or not mean. So let's get on with it. Here's the initial map, and this is only a few hours old now. This is where it is now, by the way, from tropicaltidbits.com. I grabbed each of these GIF or PNG files and posted them in different tabs so we can animate through them, so to speak, one frame at a time. So this is the initial condition at the 850 millibar level of the atmosphere, showing us vorticity. And as you see, if we go to 24 hours out, it moves through the islands. This would be Friday night, and this would be Saturday night. It starts to kind of lose it. Sunday night, it's just probably an open wave at that point in the model field, and you can tell that just looking at these little wind flags in here. It's just a sharp trough in here. It's not closed off anymore. Will that happen? Well, we'll see. It's only 72 hours out. Easy to verify and see. Look out the window, see if that's what it looks like. Finally, at 96 hours, really kind of falling apart there, but it's fairly far to the north as opposed to the rest of the track guidance that was pretty close to Honduras. You can see sort of the center of the vorticity right about in here, this ball. So yeah, that still has it out over open water. And if we go here to 96 hours, it starts to come back. And that's where it becomes worrisome. So folks here along the Yucatan, down through Honduras, Central America as a whole, definitely want to keep an eye on this. Finally, at day 5, I'm sorry, that is day 5, pardon me. So here's day 6, and this is important. Look at all the rest of these, how fast it moves through. These are 24 hours, and you see it's going along, and then it slows down. This is 24 hours right here. That's also 24 hours. It's moving a good distance westward. That's 24 hours and not so much. That's day 6, valid on Wednesday night into Thursday, the 24th of August. And then there's day 7, a northwest turn approaching the Gulf of Mexico. Now, before people get all in, sure, you can go look and see what the rest of it shows. It brings it up in here, something like that. Why is this important? Well, let's see what we can pick out on this particular map, and there's others we could see. Obviously, this is some kind of a front coming through here. Maybe this is part of it as well. Heights probably lowering over this area a little bit, some kind of a trough maybe. The erosion of the high out here maybe leading to an alleyway for this to turn more northerly. So before we get all worried and people start posting headlines of something that's not true, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not even going to give anybody a chance to misquote me. Let's just say, let's watch this and see if we are starting a trend or if this was just a one-time, oh, well, that's not going to happen after all from the European model, and this ends up getting basically buried over Central America, and that's the end of it. But I want to show it to you because that's only 7 days out from a very reliable global model overall, and you can see as well as I can as it moves through the region. It certainly bears watching, especially, and this is mentioned of course by the forecaster there, Mr. Avila, as it approaches the Yucatan. Beyond that, let's start to see, is there a reason that it could get up into this area or farther north? Well, we can watch that, and that's the beauty of all of this. We can watch it, and we can try to understand it, make sense of it, and then prepare accordingly. Like I've said, wouldn't you love to know if you're going to be hit, that you could have a week's notice at least? Wow, maybe we are. We shall see. All right, so that's it on the tropics for now. I'm going to go get some sleep. I'll be back in the early afternoon with another update, of course, and then probably something later on tonight, Friday night. So you get 3 of them on Friday, it looks like, something like that. All right, so have a great rest of your day as it begins here 5 a.m. Eastern Time on the East Coast, roughly a little after 5 anyway, as I wrap this up. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for all of you sending the tweets and the information and the observations from Barbados. That means a lot to me. It really does, and your descriptions and everything about it, just wonderful. What a world we live in where we can do that and share amongst each other a common interest and, of course, concern. You know, people want to know what's happening down there, and now we can show them at least a little bit. So thank you very much. I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for watching. I'll be back later in the day with more.